And welcome to another edition of Wardy Screencast. And yes, that is myself, Professor Ward, at mile 8 of my first and only marathon. It's nice and happy at mile 8. About mile 20? Not so much. Anyway, today we are learning about the quote sandwich. Why? So we can effectively explain, introduce, and transition our readers to the evidence and quotes that we are using. While today we are going to focus on using quoted evidence, quotes from articles and newscasts and all that kind of stuff, this can apply also to when you use paraphrase information. You'll know you've got it when you can explain how this quote sandwich is helpful to readers, know that and understand and explain the 3 parts of the quote sandwich, and use this quote sandwich in your own writing. So let's get into it. Let's do it. So what I want you to do is pause this video, read this paragraph, and pay particular attention to the quote that's in here and how the paragraph kind of flows. If we know where this quote even came from. So pause and do that right now. Now that you've paused the video, if you haven't, you should. Hopefully you've realized that there's no flow. We just kind of have this quote here. We don't know really who said it. We might be able to infer it's from the United Nations, but who at the United Nations? Was it put out in a statement from them? Is it part of a newscast? We need more information. Without knowing where the quote came from, that's plagiarism, which is a whole nother issue. But there's no context created for the reader either. We call this a hit and run quote. We just drop it in and go on. We need to create a little more context for the reader. So we're going to use something called a quote sandwich. It's 3 components. A little sentence or 2 to introduce the evidence, to introduce the quote. Weave in the quote. We're going to go over this in a minute. So I'll just drop it in. And then explain that quote, explain the evidence, kind of show what it is you're trying to get out of it. Make that clear. And this, the first part and the third part, create that context for your reader. Now, this is all color-coded because you're going to see the different parts. And yeah. All right. So we are working on the essay, first essay on the disability and society. So we have a quote from Wendell. But anyway, so this will be an introduction to it. Some professionals indicate that images such as the ones portrayed in Breaking Bad can develop disability in society. I'm going to read something about disability in society. Now remember, I can't just drop the quote in. I need these parts. Transition. Let the reader know. Use a transition to signal, hey, there's evidence coming. Let the person know who said this quote. Was it an author, a writer, a person in authority? We need a verb. Without the verb, we don't have a complete sentence. And then drop in that quote. With your in-text citation. Let the reader know where it came from. So, for example, we have our transition. This is the author's name, a verb. Notice we have our in-text citation here. The complete quote, there is a handout loaded into Canvas, kind of going back through the quote sandwich. You can look at that and you'll see the complete quote. So we have some professionals indicate images, blah, blah. So basically, we've introduced it. We transition into the quote. And now we want to create that final context by explaining the quote. And I would say, you can't really do that well in 1 or 2 sentences. We need 3 to 4, maybe even 5. But your job is to create that context for your reader. There are templates in Chapter 3 of The Art of Quoting from They Say, I Say, which you should have read. So go back to that if you need help. You can always come to office hours if you need help. So remember, we were learning about the quote sandwich so we can introduce and create that context. You should now be able to do these things. If you're struggling, still not getting this, maybe watch this video again and reach out to me. Office hours or the office hours discussion board. So what you're going to do now is complete the draft of your first essay by Monday at 11:59 p.m. Make sure it's submitted in Canvas. And let's focus on using the quote sandwich. Other than that, Wardy is out of here.